Thank you, Jason. Well, as you say, in documenting in real time, we did have to move out of where we previously were just because the crowd was getting rowdy and we were within the crowd. Now, again, you can see I'm not sure what's causing them to run, but right now people are starting to run up 400 East right now. This is past the Planet Fitness right now. Again, one of the things that we talked about a little bit earlier is about the traffic, and that there were people that were in traffic that were trying to join this movement. And some of the signs that people have, you see them that they're up. Photographer Josh Wishel, he is moving right now just to kind of give the viewers a better vantage point of where we are. Again, in front of the Planet Fitness, you can see vehicles with signs on their cars saying "I can't breathe" and "Black Lives Matter," and also to trust black people. Right now, again, I'm not sure what's causing people to move right now, but they are now moving up the block. And I can tell you from the vantage point that we have, again, we had to move just simply because police asked us to, but you can see police have moved up the block. You can see a sea of police lights. Now, where that area previously, hey, well, get out the way. You can see where previously, where it was open, now all of that is a sea of lights where police vehicles are. And again, that's in front of the city library. And again, I'm not for sure what caused people to move up the block, but right now it seems that they're moving up 400 South. And Nick, we're gonna send it back to you.
It cannot be understated that we have the National Guard being deployed onto the streets of Salt Lake City amid massive protests. We've been dealing with a global pandemic, widespread unemployment, and then the tragic video that so many people have seen of George Floyd being killed by the officer in Minneapolis. Above our roof at the news station here, we can hear the rain start to pour down. So I'm wondering if Jason or Nicole is starting to see any of that rain come down, what the crowds are doing right now. It looked like things were calming, but we have ABC4's Jason Wynn now. Jason, what are you seeing?
Hey, Nick, you know, the wind is really picking up right now. It feels massively strong. We backed up just so we can take this back corner by Planet Fitness here and just kind of show you exactly what's going on here. And you can see the police, they're still where they were earlier today, where we were telling you just about 5 minutes ago that they were creating that line right there. Now, as Nicole mentioned, we saw a lot of people that were running down 400 South towards 100 East. But we're unsure of why they were running either. But there are more people coming right back here off of 200 East and 400 South, and they're continuing to throw things at police officers, mostly water bottles here. Now most of the crowd, they understand that the National Guard may be moving in soon. And what I was just told by one protester was, bring them. And that was kind of interesting and kind of alarming to me. So, you know, that is what we're dealing with down here as the storm starts to move in here. But from what we can tell here is that police, they're going to block off from 200 East all the way past 300 East off of 400 South. For the most part, they've been letting the crowd voice their frustrations. There hasn't been any projectile thrown back towards the crowd. And most people that are at the front of that line are trying to remain civil. They have been yelling at some of these other protesters for their actions. Other people that are just surrounded by me and another photographer that's here with my photographer, John Perry, they're just taking this all in because this is something that not many people have seen down here, but this is a lot of frustration that we are feeling from these folks right now, Nick.
And Jason, we're hearing from our team of meteorologists, Alana Brophy, Adam Carroll. There's a severe thunderstorm warning in effect in downtown until 6 o'clock, so in the next 5 minutes or so. But we could be getting 60-mile-per-hour winds, so it's unclear if that's going to have any effect on the protest that has been going on now for north of 6 hours. At 6:15, we're going to take live a Zoom meeting with the mayor of Salt Lake, Aaron Mendenhall, the chief of police, Mike Brown, in Salt Lake, and Governor Gary Herbert. They are going to discuss an 8 p.m. curfew for the city of Salt Lake. And just to recap, the governor has issued, he has called out the National Guard. We've seen a police vehicle flipped and burned. We have seen glass smashed at the track stop. We've seen vandalism at the police station, vandalism at our state capitol. The video of George Floyd's death spreading across the country, protests spreading across the country, but no one has seen protests like this along the streets of Salt Lake City. And now we have the National Guard, we're told, that will be deployed onto those streets. We are continuing our live coverage of these protests that were peaceful for many hours and have escalated. We've seen a lot of restraint from police officers. We've seen people attack them unprovoked, but we did see some violent confrontations, especially as police made that initial push. Live on television, photographer Josh Witzel captured a man who was pushed over, collapsed on the ground. 3 police officers then went to help him up, but the images are striking, unlike anything we've ever seen. We've got another live look from downtown Salt Lake. Either Nicole Newman or Jason Wynn is going to give us a sense of what's happening right now.
Hey guys, you know, as we've been saying, we're out here and we're talking to the people, and right now I'm joined by an activist, Ashanti. I want to thank you for your time. I do want to ask you, why did you decide to come out today?
We decided to come out today because we're the voice of the youth. We're the voice of the future generations. And as a BYU graduate, I understand the Beehive. There's a group called the Beehive, which means collectively we work together. Look what's happening around us. Us working together and us doing this is starting to cause change and starting people to wake up. So that was the main reason, to just get awareness and get everybody out here.
What do you think about the way things have unfolded?
I think the way things unfolded is very unfortunate. Rest in peace, George Floyd. I think, especially out here, we need to remember why we're out here. Not just looting stuff, not just knocking down buildings. We need to remember the focus and why we're out here. For me personally, I have a 2-year-old son that's black, and so he has to be raised around this world, and I want him to see the power of numbers in the village. If we come together, what impact can do and what the change can be.
When you see this turnout, you talked about your son. Does it give you hope?
Yes, definitely. That's the only thing we need right now is hope and courage and the ability to do this, and also to vote. We need to get with our representatives of Utah and actually talk to them. A Congressman, Fred Brink, down in West Valley. We need to go to the websites, us.gov Utah, so we can start voting and start implementing our infrastructure that we need to see in the system for justice.
You talked about change, and lastly, I do want to ask you just again to reiterate, what are the things that you think need to happen in order to move it forward from protests that are breaking out right now to actually seeing true change?
Education. Education is the first thing. We need to educate ourselves with what's going on, what's happening here, and how we can educate ourselves on the system so that we can better the system. This system has been input for 100 years now. The Congresswoman has been in office, I forgot her name, I think it's Sandy, but she's been an officer for 60 years. That means we aren't seeing any evolution within the system. So we need to start having more political leaders, more people like myself and you that are stepping out here and wanting to change.
Okay. Ashanti, I want to thank you for your time. I want to send things over to my colleague, Jason Nguyen. Hi, Jason.
Hey, Nicole, right now we have another police line that has formed right off of 300 East. Sorry, come on, man, we're on live TV right now, all right, brother? All right, so right now, police, you can see right now, one of the officers, he's taking a look. John, I want you to take a look up here. There are people on this building. It's an apartment building right now. We have one officer that is completely looking at all those people to make sure that nothing is thrown down on them. They are creating a police line. They are going to move this police line up to 400 South eventually. You can see the big vehicle right behind them. We don't know which department these officers are with or deputies for that count, but they are prepared. They have their mask on them. They have their deterrents to crowd disperse right now, and there is a medic. We can see that there is a medic right in the middle of this police line, so you can see that they are trying to protect themselves around this vehicle, this big black vehicle, this SWAT type vehicle. Right over here, if my photographer John follows me, the rain is just now starting to come down in Salt Lake City. This is 400 South. This is at 400 South, 200 East, and you can see the crowd being dispersed. The police police line is moving forward right now, and that they're coming our way. You can see that, but here they're going to be met with another police force. This crowd does not know that, but that police line is moving their line up. It looks like just a couple of feet, but they're looking to take over that intersection. And if I was a betting man, and I know we can't do that here in Utah, but that police line is going to move up to this part of the intersection, and this police line that is right behind us, this police line is going to meet that police line, and eventually they're going to take over and secure this part of downtown here. Now, my photographer, John, as we walk in the rain, we're going to walk right back over here because these are some of the vehicles that are stuck right in the middle of this, Nick. These are the vehicles that can't get out of here, but they're also the vehicles that are sitting here documenting this. You can see all of this right now, Nick, so we can tell you that there's a lot of frustration down here.
Jason, I can see those pictures, and
yeah, Nick,
continue to give us a sense of what you're seeing, but you covered the procession for Officer Lyday yesterday. You know, the slain officer in Ogden. How do you make sense of Utah and its proud support for law enforcement with what we're seeing here? Because obviously the video of George Floyd's death has saddened all of us, and yet you see a massive protest against police brutality here, and yesterday such a show of support in Ogden.
Nick, you know what a coin looks like. There's two sides to the coin and there's a middle. Right now we've seen both sides of that coin and we're trying to find the middle. That's the best way I can describe what is happening in Utah, because we all know that Officer Lyday went to protect a family in a domestic violence call. That's what we were being told. Here, this is frustration from Americans that have dealt with issues and centuries of problems, and they're just frustrated. And we have a younger generation that is really just trying to take some of this out on law enforcement. And most people that we have talked to, they have said that they're just trying to be to get their voices heard. I'm sure this man, sir, would you mind talking to us? No swear words, okay, brother? No swear words. Tell me what your name is.
Devon Blackman.
Just look at me, man. Devon, tell me why you're down here right now.
We're down here because we need to inflict change. We're not down here to separate. We need to bring all races together. That's why we're down here, to bring everybody together. Black, white, Mexican, it doesn't matter. We're here for peace and love. Right now, I got a 10-month-old son. He's black. I'm afraid for him to grow up in this.
I'm being told you talked to my colleague right over there, so they just heard your story. So I really do appreciate you coming through here and talking to us. But, you know, we're going to keep walking this way. John, watch behind you. There's a motorcycle coming in here. We're going to move right in front of this lady. Can you see us? Thank you very much. What I want to show you here is that, you know, Nick, there's just, you know, when you ask me about Officer Lyday and you ask me about what's happening right now, all I can tell you is that there's frustration. There was frustration against that domestic violence. There's frustration against this. You know, I think one of those things is that people are just trying to voice their feelings right now. But right now, as we can see, come on, man, come on. So one of the things we can tell you here, Nick, and I just want you to follow me here, John, is that there is a police line right here. We're right off of 200 East, and that eventually that police line, you see the K9, you see the K9 right there. That line is going to move down here to 400 South and join the other officers. So this is what we're dealing with. They are controlling that crowd. They are pushing it in. And one of the two routes that this crowd has to go is going to be down 400 South, or they're going to be going down 200 East heading southbound, because that is where the police lines are, Nick. And a lot of people, you've heard it, there's obscenities being said right now, and they're just trying to voice their opinion. We just understand that not everybody here agrees with all of the destruction that we're seeing in downtown Salt Lake City, Nick.
That was said very well, Jason, and it's interesting, you know, you've got all of that frantic and tense behavior earlier with those clashes with police, and then you've got equal parts calm there as folks calmly protest, standing around. They are blocking the street. You see the lines of police. But this continues to evolve from violent protests, a police car overturned on fire, the National Guard being deployed downtown, and we have about 10 minutes here until we're told the mayor, the police chief, and our governor are going to meet over Zoom to discuss a possible 8 o'clock curfew. We know those have not been honored in other cities like Minneapolis We're continuing our live coverage with Nicole Newman. Nicole, you have someone to talk to.
Yes, Nick, we do. In fact, the person that I have didn't want to be identified. However, he did show us video to verify that he was someone who helped the elderly man initially when you saw it maybe about a few hours or so. It's hard to kind of tell how long we've been out here. That was pushed to the ground. Can you tell us how he's doing?
Yeah, he's fine. It was just like his knee was swollen and his his shoulder was swollen. Sorry, but then me and my friend saw people helping him to a bench, and I was like, can we help carrying him down the street if it starts to get gassed? And basically, we got him in front of the city council building to sit down, and then some people were saying they tried to call 911. They said we actually can't send ambulances right now. He said as long as we can get into an emergency room, the VA will cover his costs. So we were trying to do that, and then someone was willing to go pull their car around, but then they couldn't get through because that was right as the chain of cops started coming down the street. So we ended up, his son came up down the road, and we were able to get him because his house was only a half block away. He wasn't trying to protest, he was just trying to take pictures. So we ended up helping him walk down to his house, and he's there now and he should be safe, but like honestly, he just needs to get to a hospital. But until the roads clear up, he can't do that. So I don't know, we saw someone in to help, and that's the whole point is one of us goes down, we all need to band together. And I don't think anyone can say all lives matter until everyone says Black Lives Matter. So that's why I'm out here right now, and it looks like everyone's running, so I'm gonna go, but yeah.
Thank you, I appreciate your time.
Good day.
Hey Nick, we're gonna send it back to you.
Okay, Nicole, and we caught that image live on television. We know it's a chaotic moment. We know that the police have been getting a lot of unprovoked attacks, but we'll try to show it to you again at 10, but it was striking. The police had, their shields up, and as they tried to move the crowd, they knocked this elderly man on the ground. And so we know there's a lot going on, and we know that decisions are made in the moment. Right now we have a running crowd. We're going to take another live look from either Jason or Nicole's photographer. Jason's photographer. Here we go.
Hey Nick, thanks for sending it back to us here. Just want to show you West Valley has brought in another armored vehicle. They have completely blocked off the street of 200 East here. So they're going to position themselves what we believe to be here for quite a while. We do know that the police line from West Valley and Salt Lake City right over here by the Dunkin' Donuts has moved up. They moved up about 5 feet and they turned the West Valley SWAT vehicle, the new SWAT vehicle that they have. It's perpendicular to the Salt Lake City one. So that is their line. Again, we've been telling you this in the entire time. These are lines that do not move. They move forward, but they do not move backwards. And we can tell you that they are starting to move right down here to 400 South. These officers, they only got about 200 yards to go. So Nick, what I can tell you is this line is moving. This is where most of the frustration is down here. This over here, this is going to be a line that moves forward eventually, and we're going to continue to stay here. We're going to continue to cover this, Nick. So I'm going to send this back to you in the studio.
Jason, have you seen any clashes recently? It looks a lot more peaceful now. We're seeing the sun peek through the clouds. I don't know if we can take Jason again, but Jason, I haven't seen any clashes in the last 5 minutes or so. Wondering what you're seeing.
Nick, I haven't seen any clashes, but I'm on a different police line. That line over by Nicole that's behind us, it's a little more active, I should say. And you can see as my photographer, John, starts to move in, you can hear the yelling, you can hear the screaming, and you can see there's just thousands of people. And now it seems like somebody is jumping on top of a vehicle. You can see them jumping. It looks like they might be destroying that vehicle, and they're heading onto that south side of the library there. As we start to walk down here, John, let's walk down here and give them a little bit better of a look. If the clashes are happening, Nick, I believe that they would be down here. You can see right here, law enforcement has from this wall right here all the way down towards those SWAT vehicles, but the crowd itself is moving on the south side of 400 South over here. You know, they're moving away from the intersection. As we start to move forward a little bit more, you can see some of these officers, they're actually speaking with people and trying to ration with them. And you know, that is what we've been seeing from a lot of folks here, is just some type of rationalization. But as we continue to move down here, you can see this police line, Nick, is right here. And we're now in the intersection of 200 East and 400 South. You can see that the sun is shining on these officers, but right over here, it just seems like people are jumping on vehicles. Any vehicle that is stuck inside there, there is people around. There are people there. And just over here to my left, or to my right over here, these officers, they're starting to move forward now because there's no one here in this intersection. You can see this officer, he's in charge, obviously. He is moving people here. John, right here in the middle over here. Hey buddy, come on now. What's your, anyways, we're gonna send this back to you, Nick.
Okay, Jason, we're gonna send it to Nicole now. We're understanding there are some clashes happening. We're working on crews getting them deployed there. This is so fluid, what's happening right now. National Guard being deployed in downtown Salt Lake. We haven't seen it just yet. ABC4's Nicole Newman. Hi, Nicole.
Hey guys, well, things are starting to get really rowdy over on this side. I can tell you over here in the crowd, there are some people that appear to be standing on cars. There's also, it looks like a truck that has pulled up, which what appears to be a flatbed that people are standing on. And also people are coming up and telling us we haven't seen this and we can't confirm this for ourselves, but apparently someone has a crossbow. Multiple people have been telling us this, that someone has a crossbow and is around in the crowd threatening to shoot it at people. So, and here we go, people are moving right now.
Nicole, are those flashbangs from police or are these civilian protesters driving through? Hey, Nicole, can you hear me?
Nick, I couldn't hear.
Now, were those flashbangs from police, Nicole? I'm not sure if you can hear me. Flashbangs from police or were those protester vehicles?
It's really hard to tell. It's really hard to tell, Nick. All I can say is that when those explosions, whatever they were, wherever they came from, it caused the crowd to disperse some. And as the people have cleared out just a little bit, you can see that there's another vehicle that has been turned over and has graffiti written on it.
Nicole, do we know if that's a police vehicle?
Let me see if I can get over here and see.
Hey, but be safe, okay? I'm not trying to tell you to do anything that puts your safety in jeopardy. All right, we're going to take Jason Wynn now. We'll check back in with Nicole in just a bit.
This does not appear to be...
Jason, can you hear us?
Hey Nick, as we've been telling you, police lines have moved. This line has moved perpendicular. Now they have taken half of the intersection back. Over there where that crowd is where Nicole was. That is where we've seen several fireworks. It appears that another vehicle has been overturned and that it is on fire. What I can also tell you is that team that we were just mentioning that was going to take over this part of the street, they have also moved forward. You can see that they have their vehicles. They have blocked off the street. There is a K9 that is there. This team is prepared. There are also people watching the roofs over here. Just over here behind me, as my photographer pans to the left here, you can see that the other law enforcement officials are here and they're holding this line right now, not letting anybody go past them, and they are trying to protect themselves. I am on the rather calm side for right now, and most of the frustration is over here as my photographer John starts to move to the left over here. Sorry for the camera movement moving quickly here, but this is, you can see there is another vehicle that is on fire. This is the police line. This is filled with UPD, South Salt Lake City, you name it. There are officers from all over the place that are here to try to protect downtown Salt Lake City. But right over there behind them, behind this triangle, is a group of people that are frustrated, and they've been trying to take their frustrations out on law enforcement. And you can see that car right over here, it is burning right in between the Salt Lake City police officers in their protective gear. That is something that is, that's the second vehicle that has been caught on fire. You can hear them on the loudspeaker trying to get the crowd to disperse. There are children down here. There are teenagers down here. There are adults down here. And just about anybody that has some type of frustration has came down to downtown Salt Lake City. And you can see that the 400 South has been one of those areas that has just been a big issue here all around this library. As my photographer John tries to readjust, he's had this camera on his shoulder majority part of the day, and to hold a 20-pound camera in something like this is very, very hard to do. I can tell you, whether it's police or if it's protesters, there's plenty of water that's being passed around so people stay hydrated. So that is one of the things that we can tell that may make this go through a little while longer. Now we understand that there's discussions over a curfew tonight, and that the National Guard may be coming down here. I can tell you that law enforcement wants to gain control over the situation before nightfall. That vehicle, there's another explosion. You can see that vehicle now completely on fire as it burns through that gas tank. You can see there are more people right behind me that are arguing with law enforcement. Law enforcement has a triangle right now. Thank you. I really, hey, come on, man. Why you gotta cuss, man? Come on. Hey, brother. All right, man. Thank you for your opinion. I appreciate it. I really do appreciate it. So as you can see right behind me, there's a vehicle that is on fire here. There's a lot of people trying to document what is going on with all of this right now. Nick, we are hearing several explosions right now. You can see that there's a large plume of smoke that is right there in front of that police line right there. So we are we're going to continue to document this right now. And my photographer here, we're going to move as this police line continues to move forward. And Nick, I'm going to send this back to you right now because this vehicle is really on fire.
Jason, the second vehicle to be lit on fire in downtown Salt Lake today. For those who thought this protest might end before nightfall, it certainly looks like folks are not going away. Nicole Newman is right in front of that fire. We're going to take it live to Nicole. Hi, Nicole.
Hey, Nick. Well, you guys can see it. The vehicle within the past couple of minutes now almost completely fully engulfed. I wasn't able to get close enough. It's some sort of Mitsubishi model, and you can see West Valley in their armored vehicle trying to move in to keep people away from this vehicle. A few explosions from the vehicle have gone off, and it's even more fully engulfed in flames right now. As police are trying to move in, though, protesters are trying to keep their vehicles from coming in. But if you guys can see this, even as protesters are throwing things at them within the midst of this smoke, there is a line, a wall around this West Valley City armored vehicle as they try to keep protesters back from this vehicle that is starting to burn even more. Nick?
Nicole, these images are unreal. Burning vehicles in the streets of Salt Lake City, plumes of smoke. It's just unreal. Do you know why they would have lit this vehicle on fire? It sure doesn't look like a police vehicle. Okay, we're gonna stay on this image for just a second.
I'm not sure, Nick. We've had to keep shifting where we were standing as we were within the crowd, and so every time.
And we're taking a Zoom meeting now. The image that you just saw with flame on the screen. This is a meeting about a possible 8 p.m. curfew. Listen in. It looks like they're having a technical difficulty. When we can get audio, we're going to come back to this, but if we could take a live look back at those flames to get a sense of what's happening on the streets of Salt Lake. Once they figure out their Zoom meeting and the technical issues, we will come back to that. I don't know if our producer can take the video of those flames. It's just impossibly difficult to watch, as we know the message of so many of these protesters is about racial inequality, police brutality, that horrible video that we saw of George Floyd, and yet, so many people who share those views do not condone the looting, the lighting of the cars on fire, the kind of destruction that we are seeing on the streets of our capital city. This is the second vehicle we've seen lit on fire today. We've seen vandalism at the police station, at the Capitol. We've seen confrontations. We've seen a lot of understandable pain and anger, and a lot of it has manifested in very peaceful ways, but some of it has resulted in the images you're seeing on your screen. So many other folks are standing peacefully by. We've seen folks blocking streets, but again, some of the chaos, the shattered glass, the looting, the vandalism, the graffiti. We know the National Guard is being deployed on the streets of Salt Lake. The governor tweeting that out earlier, and he said that at this point, you know, the hearts of Utah officials go out to the family of George Floyd. But he is not condoning any of that destruction of property. We're grateful for the swift actions of those taken by the state of Minnesota. Governor Gary Herbert said to hold those for his death responsible accountable. We cannot, the governor said, condone violence, defacement of public buildings, and destruction of property. Here's Jason Wynn.
Hey, Nick, you know, law enforcement just allowed us to go behind their line. We're grateful for the Unified Police because it was their sergeant that allowed us to come back here and give you a closer look at this. I can feel the flames coming from this vehicle that is just clearly cooking. We've heard several explosions since we've been here. You can feel, it's just, it feels like it's 110 degrees right now next to this vehicle here. You can see law enforcement is now moving. They have completely.
And it looks like we're losing Jason's picture. It's an image you can't turn away from, and we apologize for the freeze frame. This is live television. This is the technology on the streets of Salt Lake that we are using in a dynamic situation. A meeting right now, less visually interesting than this, but very important, is happening, and it's about a possible curfew. We're going to listen into Mayor Aaron Mendenhall right now.
Property is only causing more pain. What's happening on our streets right now is not justice. Today, Salt Lake City wanted to give people the space they needed to express the anger and hurt and frustration felt by so many in our community. The right to protest is legitimate and it is critical to democracy. Hundreds, perhaps thousands of people in Salt Lake City did just that today, peacefully protest. We join with those who demand change and are ready to work together. The unfortunate choice of some to inflict destruction and chaos does nothing to right past wrongs or rebuild a system that is unjust. Salt Lake City Police made a calculated decision today to allow protest, vandalism, and even the loss of a police vehicle instead of ratcheting up the likelihood of a violent confrontation with aggressive police action as we've seen across the country. Salt Lake City Police are extensively trained in de-escalation, and their restraint today, even right now, is evidence of that. As we've seen in cities across the country, these protests have drawn some individuals that are less interested in racial justice than they are in wanton destruction. This is not acceptable, and it undermines the message these peaceful demonstrators marched for today. The safe space we offered for today's protests is no longer safe for anybody. So with my support, the Salt Lake City Police Department has been mobilized to stop the violence, destruction, and the looting in our city. Our police department is being supported right now by the Utah National Guard, Utah Highway Patrol, and police departments valley-wide. Additionally, I'm enacting through an emergency proclamation a curfew that will take effect at 8 p.m. tonight. The curfew will apply to the entire city. It will extend from 8 p.m. today until 6 a.m. Monday morning. During the hours of curfew, people may not be on a public street or in any public space, including for the purpose of travel, with the following exceptions: law enforcement, fire, paramedics, or other medical personnel, news media, people traveling to work.
I wonder why they don't switch to the
Caring for a family member, friend.
Herbert speaking now. I'm watching her on Zoom, but
I believe that's Pastor Davis, and we're so glad you're back with us. I'm going to wrap my remarks and I'll hand it right off to you, Pastor Davis. The exceptions: people traveling to work, obtaining food, caring for a family member, friend, or an animal, traveling to the airport, seeking medical care, fleeing dangerous circumstances, or experiencing homelessness. Private businesses may remain open, but people may not be out on the streets or in a public space for reasons other than those I've just listed. Please, if you are on Salt Lake City streets right now and you do not meet those exceptions, go home. This city belongs to all of us. We've worked hard to build this place, and we must work just as hard to protect it and do the productive work of fixing what is broken in our city and in our systems. Violence is not helping. As Killer Mike said to the city of Atlanta and to our nation last night, have strength, empathy, and determination. It is okay to feel anger. It's okay to demonstrate. Violence and destruction only make the problems worse. And tonight, I ask you, stop destroying our city. We will continue through the media to be in communication with you and update you throughout the evening and this weekend.
Thank you, Mayor. This is Reverend Davis.
Thank you for being with us, Reverend Davis. I'm so glad you're here.
Well, it's my pleasure, and I want to echo the concerns for our community. We're all a part of this community, and no use anybody destroying any part of it. It's okay to be frustrated. It's okay to be angry, but the expressions of our anger and our frustration have to be in nonviolent ways. So I want to summon the community, along with the mayor and the police chief, to do all that you can, but do it nonviolently. Thank you all for listening, and I hope that we'll work together to bring a solution to this.
Thank you. We will now turn our time over to Governor Gary Herbert.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you, Mayor Mendenhall and Pastor Davis, for your words of counsel and wisdom. I support what you both have said, and will give my undying support as we move through this kind of unusual and difficult time. I'm right now at the EOC Center at the Capitol. We have a unified command where we've in fact combined the efforts of our public safety people, our highway patrol and troopers, as well as Chief Brown and the Salt Lake City Police Department. We're joined by 13 other cities and their police representatives here in this unified effort. And as has been mentioned by you, Mayor, I'm activating the National Guard to help where we need to have their input, their labor, and their help in clearing the streets and making sure that we, in fact, do not have any additional rioting and looting that's taking place. I'll just echo what has been said, too, and that is that we understand, I think most of us agree, that what happened in Minneapolis was despicable. And we have instances of that happening periodically around the country, and that's not, something that we support. At the same time, we honor the ability for people to assemble and to issue their complaints and address the government and peaceful protesting. But unfortunately, what I've seen in the last few hours is that's gone from a peaceful protest to just criminal behavior. I think we need to call it what it is: criminal behavior, where people are looking to riot, to loot, to create violence, and that's not acceptable. I understand that we need to do some things together, which we are doing. The reason I've activated the National Guard is to give some additional augmentation to the efforts of making sure that people's lives and their property is protected. That's what we would expect in an organized society, a civil society, that in fact laws cannot be broken with impunity. And if they are broken, then they will be punished. That's part of the protest today, is if somebody's broken the law, done something in violation of somebody's constitutional rights, they should be punished, and I expect that they will. but it cuts both ways. So we're going to make no mistake that we'll do whatever is necessary to restore order to our state, to our capital city here, Salt Lake. Mayor Mendenhall has my 100% full support to do what we need to do to, in fact, restore order here in our capital city. And I would say that's the truth throughout the state. We have other cities that have maybe smaller protests, but we're concerned about anything that becomes less than peaceful. We'll be there to help our other cities too. So let me just conclude by saying, I would hope all of us, as we understand the issues at hand, will stand tall for civil rights. If there's bigotry, if there's racism, that should not be tolerated. We live in a state that leads the nation when it comes to volunteerism, charitable giving, helping neighbors, helping people we don't even sometimes know because we care about them as children of God, neighbors that we don't know, but we want to make sure that their lives are better. That's unique in Utah compared to many places in the world today. What we see today is not typical Utah behavior. So let's make sure that we do our part to restore order and to make this a day that we won't look back with some embarrassment and be ashamed of what's taken place. We're better than that here in Utah. So again, thank you, Mayor Mendenhall, for your leadership. We support you. We back what you're doing. And certainly the 8 p.m. curfew through Monday, we support and we'll help you enforce it.
Thank you, Governor. This is Chief Mike Brown. Today has been a very hard day. It breaks my heart to watch what is happening here in Salt Lake City. We want to thank those who came to peacefully protest. And I'm asking, in fact, I'm pleading with you to clear the city. I'm calling for a stop of violence and property damage. This is uncalled for. It doesn't further the message. We will be enacting a curfew from 8 p.m. tonight through Monday at 6 a.m. in the morning. We have a unified command with federal, state, and local personnel, and we intend to be on the street. We will enforce the laws and this curfew. We have put resources downtown to prevent looting and violence. All available officers in the valley have responded to Salt Lake City and are being implemented into this plan. We will be enforcing this curfew and working to stabilize the infrastructure. Make no mistake, and I echo what the governor said, we will prosecute those that are committing these crimes. I mourn the murder of Mr. Floyd and what we saw in Minneapolis. And we as a city are committed to ensure that nothing like that happens here in Salt Lake City. But fellow Utahns, this is not the way. Why did it take us so long? My hope was that it wouldn't turn to this. And sometimes it doesn't pay to rush in without a good strategic plan. Often we just become the targets and our mere presence escalates the situation, which we saw today. Neighbors, friends, please stay at home and pray for everybody down here that this comes to a safe end. I want to thank Mayor Mendenhall for her leadership, the governor for his leadership, and my dear friend, Pastor Davis. Thank you for your inspirational words. We can take a few questions if you'd like.
I believe we have a question from Jim Spiewak. You can go ahead and unmute yourself, Jim, and ask.
Okay, yeah, Jim Spiewak with KUTV, if everyone can hear me. Thanks for taking a quick question here. My question, maybe for Chief Brown, if you know at this point, is there anything to indicate that those that are inciting the violence that we're seeing are not local, not from the city, not even from the state of Utah, that have come here to participate in this violence?
Jim, good question. At this time, we don't know. I think right now we've made a few arrests, and we will know after we gather the data on who's down here and causing that. But right now, we don't have that intel or that information.
And just a quick follow-up, do we know how many National Guardsmen will be deployed throughout the city, at least initially, and then will there be others on standby if they need to be called out?
I've authorized General Turley to activate and repurpose up to 200 National Guardsmen.
Okay, thank you.
I want to follow up on what the governor said. we're not going away. We're going to enact this curfew, and we're going to be here until Monday morning. And if we need to go longer, we will. We do have the resources, and we're very grateful for the National Guard and their support.
And then I guess just one follow-up, because I was watching some of the coverage, and we saw protesters approach private businesses and start to throw things through the windows. Is there anything that we can say to business owners right now, whether they're still at their locations or throughout the weekend, if violence starts to erupt right outside of their business?
Jim, what I would say is please call the cops, call 911. Let us know where that's occurring. We will have resources out and monitoring and patrolling and looking for these type of situations. But if they could be our ears and eyes, that would help. Please don't engage the protesters. Your safety is paramount. But if you could help us with that early notification just by calling 911 or 799-3000, let us know so we can respond.
Next, we have a question from Ben Winslow, after which we'll go to Matt Cannon.
Hi, Ben Winslow with Fox 13. Mayor Mendenhall, do you support the use of National Guard? Or, and I guess a question also for the governor, are there concerns that this might escalate the situation even further or inflame it further?
First, absolutely, I do support of additional resources coming in to secure our city, our people, and our property here, our infrastructure, the public infrastructure. The streets of Salt Lake City downtown are not safe right now. Salt Lake City Police Department needs that additional support and resources, and we're grateful for it. We need to get this under control immediately.
Ben, let me add to what the mayor just said. As we look around the country and see this not only here currently, but in times past, any kind of a delay that we have just allows more activity to occur. It has a kind of an energy of itself. We don't want that to occur. So we want to get on top of this now directly with adequate force to enforce. These are not going to be out there bullying people. They're just going to making sure that the laws are enforced, that rioting and looting and destruction of people's property and threatening their lives is going to be stopped. So again, we're careful about how we're going to approach it. These people are professional, have been trained for this kind of a situation. And I expect professionalism up and down the line when it comes to enforcing the laws of the city and the state.
Go ahead, Matt.
This is Matt Canham from the Salt Lake Tribune. Has there been any injuries that we know about at this time? Has anyone been hurt? To Governor, if you could comment about the vandalism and messages spray painted on the Capitol building and what you would say about that. And 3, do you have any reaction to the comments from the president indicating that when the looting starts, the shooting starts? Should people in Salt Lake City be afraid of being shot?
Matt, I don't know who's direct the question again. What did you want me to answer? This is the governor.
Sorry, I wanted you to answer about the spray painting on the Capitol and the president's tweet about saying when the looting starts, the shooting starts. Is that, how would you, should people in Salt Lake City be afraid of being shot?
Well, I would hope not. Again, I don't answer for what the president tweets out. I don't know what he was thinking about when he said it, so I'm not familiar with the quote. There may be some history behind, looting and shooting. It does seem to go together too often, as we've seen historically. We don't want that to happen here. I don't expect that it will happen here. But we will enforce the law and make sure that, in fact, the laws are enforced. The graffiti on the Capitol, again, that seems to be a first source of protest signs, and sometimes they deface public property. Just a reminder, that's against the law. We'll have people out there immediately to try to clean that off and make sure that our Capitol looks presentable as it should be in our capital city. So we're not going to tolerate defacing public property. That's a violation of law also.
I'd like to respond. I think that the president's tweet is racist and intended to incite fear among people, and it's absolutely inappropriate. Beyond that, I'll let Chief answer whether or not anyone has been injured in the activities and actions happened so far.
Thank you, Mayor. Just real quick, looting is a theft. It's the theft of property. It's a property crime. You don't use lethal force to enforce a theft. That's completely inappropriate, and that will not occur. Just short and simple, that will not occur.
Thank you very much, everyone. I think we're going to wrap here. If you have additional questions, please reach out. We'll try to answer them as best we can. And as Mayor Mendenhall said, we will continue to update you as the situation progresses. Thank you.
We were on that Zoom call trying to get a question in. It's a convoluted thing where you raise your hand digitally, and they didn't essentially call on us. We have a couple more questions for them. But just to wrap that up, the governor calling what's happening on the streets of Salt Lake criminal behavior. We're better than that, Governor Gary Herbert said. Our police chief, Mike Brown, here in Salt Lake City, he said, "It breaks my heart what happened. They stood back as a police agency to avoid escalating any of this violence because their presence can just escalate situations like this. But their plea is to leave the city. A curfew just announced, just to wrap up everything we heard, 8 p.m. tonight to 6 p.m. Monday morning. The police chief saying, we will prosecute those who commit these crimes." Mayor Mendenhall says stop destroying this city. Certainly you heard it loud and clear from all the officials there. 8 p.m. curfew till 6 p.m., 6 a.m. Monday morning. We are going to take a slight break from what is happening now, checking in with meteorologist Adam Carroll. Adam, what's going on with the weather? I know it's been a crazy day, but folks still want to get outside.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a crazy day, Nick. A challenging day as well in the weather world as we've had a lot of activity. We've had severe thunderstorms up and down the state. And you can see here recently on our Deer Valley camera, a pretty strong storm moving through the Jordanelle area on the backside of the Wasatch, dumping a quick hit of rainfall, some lightning, gusty winds as well. But we've got a lot of cloud cover here associated with multiple different storms that have popped up here during the afternoon hours thanks to the heating of the day. We're starting to lose that heat. We did get to 98 today, believe it or not, in Salt Lake, but we still will have the opportunities to see more of a general threat of scattered thunderstorms, and some of them will become severe like we have seen. We've had 7, 8, 9 severe thunderstorms out there. We still have a couple here across northern Utah on Storm Tracker radar, but you can see all the different activity here all the way up the I-15 corridor, a little bit on the eastern side of the state, but things have a little bit right now kind of dissipated here on this side, southeastern corner of the state, around Lake Powell or just to the west of that. Bear Lake's been very, very active today, but you can see right now we still have 2 severe thunderstorm warnings, mainly in Box Elder County, but a little bit in the far northern end of Tooele County right now. Let's get a little bit lower into the state, though, and around places like Kanab, the south central mountains. Antimony has a pretty strong storm just to the west of you and to the east of Beaver, around Eagle Point. South of Escalante, we're seeing strong storms producing some brief heavy rain. Also, possible small hail, and there is a potential for flash flooding in any of these areas of southern Utah. Blanding's got a storm right on top of you as well across southeastern Utah to the west of Monticello. The Abajos have got a storm system over you. Farther north, we're looking at Delta, seeing some scattered storms in the area. Pace and Provo, Pleasant Grove have had some pretty strong storms move through this area over the last couple of hours. Nothing became severe, but we've had some pretty gusty winds, 50-mile-per-hour gusts at times, but it's been very, very active on the Wasatch back here around Heber City, Park City. Look at Morgan, just to the east of Morgan, a very strong storm moving through this area as it heads north. And most of these storms are heading north in a 45 to 50-mile-per-hour pace. So these are moving very, very quickly, but they are causing some damage with wind. There's your severe thunderstorm warning here out in the middle of nowhere's the West Deserts, but it did move through the I-80 corridor and then into far northern Utah. Here you can see Park Valley, Snowville. You're under that severe thunderstorm warning here for a little bit longer, and we have had some storms moving into Idaho Idaho. And then there's this storm system that moved through a pretty strong one, and at times a severe storm moving through just to the east and right on top of the Bear Lake area. So we've been very, very active out there today. We also have wind advisories here for the remainder of the evening through 9 p.m. in this tan-shaded area, mainly all of the West Deserts. Up to 50-mile-per-hour gusts are possible, and up to 60 for that high wind warning area. This now does include the Elko area. That has since been expanded into the area here in the last couple of hours. And look at the winds right now, just blowing in from the south and southwest. 39 right now is the sustained speed in Ely, 30 Wendover, 39 in Salt Lake. And so we are continuing to see the winds very, very strong. Even the gusts are really, really strong places like Ely and Elko, which is why they upped that to a high wind warning for the Elko area. Now we are 78, but we got to 98 degrees. Now that's a new record for the day in Salt Lake. 81 in Cedar, 97 in St. George, 80 in Vernal. And I mentioned that 98 is a record. That's from 97 in 2003. Now we also do have some red flag warnings throughout much of Nevada into portions of the West Deserts down into St. George, over to Lake Powell, and up into the Castle Country area and around Moab through tomorrow, because we're going to continue to have hot, dry conditions and very gusty winds. So Futurecast shows most of what we're going to see out there now is starting to dissipate as we're losing the heating of the day. We might still see it though across eastern Utah. We have a cold front sliding through tomorrow morning. That will continue to keep the winds very strong across eastern and southern Utah. We'll see a little bit less across the north, and we'll see mainly partly cloudy skies, and then really just stays dry but unfortunately windy here moving forward through the Monday and Tuesday time frame. But we will have the possibility of more isolated chances of thunderstorms here across eastern Utah and southeastern Utah tomorrow. Because of that front, we'll go 87, so 10 degrees cooler here in Salt Lake. But for overall St. George, we're going to cool off a bit after what we have the last couple of days, and really our best chance is going to be on Friday for some scattered storms for the Wasatch Front. We're going to be very dry for the next several days, windy, and we're going to stay mainly in the 80s, Nick, overall, isolated to scattered storms in the end of the week.
Adam Carroll, thank you so much for that brief respite from what has been an incredibly tough day. Now we're joining Jason Wynn live in Salt Lake. Jason, what are you seeing?
Hey, we're giving you live pictures right now. There was a man that was just brought out of the crowd. It appeared that he was in distress. People were screaming for a medic for this man. And then once law enforcement went down there, then the man got up and walked away. But right now what you're seeing as my photographer zoomed in here is just that reaction to that initial call for a medic, but it appears that that guy got up, he walked away. These officers right now are now reforming their line, and as my photographer starts to pan to his right and go around some of this here, you can start to see this is the police line that has been made in front of that burning vehicle. Law enforcement allowed us behind this police line so that we can document this right now. But Nick, what I can tell you is that from what I've seen one sergeant that needed medical attention that was pulled out from the line, and I've also seen a person that was injured and brought down to that area right before you took our camera. So what I can tell you is that this is still pretty volatile right now, at least, but most people are trying to keep cool right now, Nick.
So you're telling us a police sergeant has been injured and you've seen another person being taken away. This sad scene continues tonight. We know that according to our governor, he said we're better than that, and that it breaks my heart, Mike Brown said, chief of police, what's happening on the streets of Salt Lake. This is the second car we've seen burning on our streets today as these violent protests continue to ebb and flow on the streets of Salt Lake. It's why the governor is calling out the National Guard. We don't know how long they will be here, but we do know there's a curfew tonight, and you see the flames erupt again. You heard screams there in the crowd. You kind of wonder how close folks are to that crowd. But right now, as we look at these images that are just hard to look away from, we're going to take ABC4's Nicole Newman not too far away. Nicole, what are you seeing from your angle?
Well, Nick, what we're seeing from our angle, as it was mentioned, yes, this is the second car that has been burning. We've been talking to people here on the ground just to kind of get an idea and a sense of what led up to this. Joining me now is a protester, John Hernandez. And John, I want to ask you, what did you see?
Yeah, so I don't know, a lot of people started running over here and I went to see what it was. There was this old white guy who got out of his car and started screaming at protesters, saying all lives matter. He pulled out a hunting bow, like a bow and arrow, and started pointing it at the crowd, and everyone kind of got scared. One guy tried to rush after him to stop him and he tripped. And as he was on the floor, the guy pointed the bow and arrow at his face, and then everyone started like rushing him and just hitting him and beating him. The cops grabbed him away, and his car was still there, so then everyone just started jumping on his car. They started jumping on his car, smashing it, hitting it, just smashing it, hitting it with a hind, and they tipped the car over, lit it on fire, and then that's that smoke right there. So.
Well, let me ask you, when they lit it on fire, what did they use?
I saw a guy with a lighter, just because all the windows were broken. So a guy was reaching in and lighting the seat cushions on fire just with his lighter, and it eventually all came up in flames.
Now, let me ask you this. When you see this unfolding, what are your thoughts?
It's pretty crazy, but we've been dealing with this for so many years and nothing is changing. I feel like...
Okay, crowd is starting to move. We're going to toss things over to Jason.